Okay, everyone, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. This is an event hosted by Whitney Plantation, which is a museum and memorial in southern Louisiana dedicated to educating the public about the history and legacies of slavery in the United States. And today we are here to discuss the brilliant work Burned Down Master's House by author Clay Kane. And we have about an hour together today. I'm going to ask some questions and just kind of get a conversation going. And then we're going to leave a little room at the end for a Q&A. So for those of you in the audience, if you have any questions that come up throughout the course of our conversation, please put those in the Q&A and we're going to get to those at the end. So I want to introduce our guest today. Clay Kane is an award-winning journalist, author, television personality, and the host of The Clay Kane Show on Sirius XM Urban View. He is a Rutgers University graduate and Phi Beta Kappa member, and he earned a bachelor's degree in English and African American Studies. He is the author of the New York Times bestseller, The Grift, The Downward Spiral of Black Republicans from the Party of Lincoln to the Cult of Trump, and this most recent book, which we are talking about today, Burned Down Master's House. So, Clay, thank you so much for being with us today.
Oh, thank you for having me. I cannot tell you how much of an honor it is. Can I say something really quick? Is that okay?
Yeah.
So I went to the Whitney Plantation 9 years ago for my 40th birthday. I know that sounds kind of wild. Like, why would you go to a plantation museum on your 40th birthday? But it really was important to me because I had already written drafts of Burned Down Master's House, but I knew that it was important to be in experience, see a plantation with my own eyes. And then it was such a life-changing experience for me. And it was one of my best birthdays because I was thinking about so many people who they were on that land and they weren't able to leave as free people. And I was just overwhelmed. And I remember taking it all in. And I can recall seeing the house. And one of the things that I learned there is that the house is one of the structures that was never moved. So some of the cabins, y'all moved it closer
Mhm.
up because they would have the cabins so far away from the quote unquote big house,
Mhm.
the water tank. And I just remember just being so overwhelmed. And I can recall walking into the house and envisioning what it would look like in Burned Down Master's house. Now, of course, this is a plantation in Louisiana, so there's more outside spaces, but in Virginia, where the book is based, it's not the exact structure. But when I was thinking of some of those scenes, I was thinking of the that house, and I can recall my first time there. They let us in the bedroom,
Mhm.
and I was just overwhelmed. It was life changing. Then I went there a second time, and it was rainy. It was a massive storm, and we ended in the house. And our tour guide, really incredible young man, was telling us about more about the plantation, his closing remarks. And it was so gloomy and it was thundering outside. And here we are, these people, free people, on the second floor of this house. And then the tour guide told me, he said, before we go, I want us to also remember that American chattel slavery wasn't just white men. There were also white women who were complicit. And he
Mhm.
began to tell us some of the stories. Just incredible, an incredible experience. And there's certain scenes that only I know, certain descriptions that only I know, I wouldn't have been able to channel without going to the Whitney Plantation.
Oh
And
my God.
then, and then I called y'all because one of my dreams when I was there was to have my book in the gift shop. And I said, hey, or I emailed, and y'all said we already have the book in the gift shop.
Yeah, that's
And I
right.
was like, and you said it's already sold out. And so this is really a magical. I wish we could have did it in person.
I
And there's no
know.
hurricane. We
No
were worried about
hurricanes.
hurricane season. It would have been great, but next time. So this means a lot to me. Thank you.
Oh, Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I love hearing about people who are inspired. I was just talking about this because we've just there was a play that was put on in New Orleans that we helped to sponsor, that the playwright was inspired by a visit here. So I love artists coming here and taking some inspiration and creating something new with it. But
Thank you.
I want to start and talk about this date, right? So we're doing this on August 20th, and August 21st is where a lot of the action in the first chapter kind of gets going. So can you talk about why, we had talked about why we want to do it on this time. So talk about the significance of the 21st and why that's important.
So this is a spoiler, but August 21st is a really important date in American and world history. One, that's the date of the beginning of the Haitian Revolution. Two, that's the date of Nat Turner's rebellion. So when I was writing the book, the character Henry does not know his birthday. Luke's birthday is August 21st. And one of the things and I did that intentionally with Nat Turner's rebellion and the Haitian Revolution beginning on August 21st. And so one of the things that Luke does, he gifts Henry with a birth date.
Mm,
And he says, well, we'll both turn 19 on this day because they're 18. Well, Henry doesn't know his age, but Luke gifts him their birthday. It's one of those beautiful moments of intimacy.
hmm
And as things happen in the book, uh, that is the date, August 21st, shortly after midnight, when Luke and Henry decide to burn down Master's house. And
hmm
one flame sparks 1,000 fires. So this date is important to me tomorrow, but I do see it as my guys, Luke and Henry, as their birthday. And it's one of my favorite scenes where they're in Junior's room and they're cleaning and they have this intimate moment. I wanted to show casual conversation between souls, enslaved
hmm
people.
hmm
And it is that first moment of intimacy where Luke gifts Henry with a birthday. And it's his first time having something of his own, even though it's not tangible, but it's in his soul. It
hmm
imprints him. And it's the beginning of their love story. So August 21st, tomorrow, is a revolutionary day. But for me, it's a significant one of the few times I say an actual date in Burn Down Master's House. A really important part of the book.
Absolutely. There's so much I want to dive in on, but you referenced something that I want to kind of talk about because I'm so curious about your process and kind of how you put this together. But your use of language throughout, and I noticed, of course, that you use the word souls throughout. Can you talk a little bit about kind of how you started to craft the language for the world that you build in this book?
Well, I felt like because it was coming from the perspective of the enslaved people, they're not going to say or feel, slave, 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 slave. So in the majority of the narration, I say souls.
Hmm
I just felt like it humanized them. And I remember when I first wrote it, I was like, oh, I got to keep using that. I like that. And it flows. And right from the very beginning, uh, you see them as souls.
hmm
And this is no disrespect to anybody who's written amazing work on American chattel slavery, but I just didn't want to write slave, 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 slave over and over. I just said that was the things I wanted to do with this book. I wanted to tell this story differently.
hmm
So I used the language of souls, and I think it's a really beautiful way to see them, to feel them, to hear them, for them to also imprint themselves in you where they're not just property. I also don't use the N word one time in the book, not once, not one time. I didn't want to write it. I didn't want to read it. I didn't want to experience it. But again, if it's the perspective of the souls, they're not going to be thinking N word or saying N word constantly. I also didn't write it in that hyper Southern stereotypical language, which again, amazing authors have done that and it worked. But for me, I said, well, let me just write it Southern, but not spelling Theda. You know
hmm
what I'm saying? Not
hmm
taking the G off of every ing word. And you could feel and hear a beautiful Southern accent. My grandfather was from the Jim Crow South of Virginia, of Goochland, where I based the
hmm
book. And he didn't talk that way. You know what I mean? So there was a choice of the language as a writer, but also as the people, as the characters in this book, as the people who have been erased in history, that I thought it was another way to humanize them and make you feel it. And I feel like page one, page two, you're on it. Like what? Oh, okay, I see what he's doing. And that
Hmm.
stays with you, stays with you, stays with you.
Yeah, absolutely. And that piece about language is so important. I'm going to plug for all of the audience. One of my favorite projects that you can look up on the internet is called the Sojourner Truth Project.
Mm,
And she was a woman who spoke Dutch. And so, this is the thing that we forget, right? People are multilingual. You do have Henri in here who comes from a different place, right? And so you've kind of hinted at this. Not everybody talks the same. Here in Louisiana, they're speaking French. So this is something that, to your point, is sometimes gotten wrong. There's this kind of stereotype, and some people have Southern accents, but we have to remember people spoke differently, came from different places, very diverse experiences. So that's such an interesting point about how you wrote for them. I think that worked really well.
thank you.
Um, I want to talk about this process too, because you are someone who's written a lot of nonfiction. Looks like this is your first fiction book that you've written. How did that feel? That's like a different muscle. How did you work on that?
Yeah, I feel like most writers begin as fiction. Like I would write short stories when I was a kid and share them with my mom. This was the first book I wanted to publish 20 years ago, but nobody would even consider it. I couldn't even get a literary agent for it. And then after my first book lived through this, still really proud of it, but it didn't do well at all. Then The Grift comes out, that blows up. And then I told my agent, I said, I'm going to do historical fiction next. And he was like, it's not really a great idea to go from nonfiction to fiction. I said, that's what I want to do. Like, I feel like I have a little bit of autonomy now. And so I had so much of it written, but my nonfiction chops obviously kicks in because it's historical fiction. And I have 40 citations in the book. So I did want to prove something. I
Hmm.
did want to have backup. I did want to let you know it is fiction, but it's rooted in truth, right? So I think for me, that was another way to express myself, another way to tell history. For folks who listen to my show on Sirius XM, I'm going to be teaching in January at a university, but it was a way to teach. And also, my favorite books during the Harlem Renaissance, there was a rise of historical fiction, and within their historical fiction, they would tie in politics and class and race.
Hmm.
I'm talking about Gene Toomer and Arna Bontemps and Richard Wright. I wanted to do all of that because that's kind of a lost thing where like there's obvious lines in there where I'm talking about gender and literacy and borders and who's legal and who's not legal. I'm
Hmm.
putting all that in there. So I began as nonfiction published wise, but I think my heart has always been with fiction. But I don't see myself, I mean, you never know, ever doing like a fantasy book or like a romance book. I think I still want to always keep it rooted in history because that's what I love. So it was a different muscle, and I probably did it in an unconventional way. I didn't do 10 chapters, I didn't do one point of view. All of my work has always been about a thread. It's
Yeah.
never been about one individual. Even with The Grift, people said, "Oh, just do one book on Clarence Thomas." I said, "I ain't doing that." So I'm going to cover the thread of the history of Black Republicans. So that's what I love. That's how I think you can really connect community and find these people that, resonate with you. So uh, the fiction, it was another way to exercise this muscle. And I love how people have felt connected to these characters in a different way they would with nonfiction, the emotional connection.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny as a historian, there's so many slave narratives, that I've read and that I'm familiar with, and I can kind of see some of these threads throughout, getting partway through and encountering Thaddeus Stevens was a surprise for me. I was like, oh, look at that.
Right.
He's a real person, right? And so I'm thinking about this, and that chapter in particular also had echoes for me of Celia, a slave, this
Yeah.
case of this woman. So I could see where you were weaving in these stories. So for me, as the historian, I loved your long author's note at the end. That really did it for me, to
Oh,
be able to kind of piece together how you took these real pieces from here and here and made this work that imagines what those experiences might have been like. So talk about that research. I mean, clearly you studied African American history. A lot of these are stories maybe you knew before, but what kind of new research did you do, and what was your sort of process?
Well, yeah, a lot of it I did know before because my major in school was African American studies. And if you're a young person out there watching this, never throw away a textbook. I still have all of my textbooks, right? So some of these I did know about before. But when I was researching for the grift, I would sometimes go into these 19th century historical newspaper rabbit holes. And I would be stuck. I would forget about the book and like, what is this article from 1857 where a woman named Josephine, tried to kill her master in Maryland? Like, this is crazy. Or I
Mhm.
would read, finding out about Charity Butler and finding the court case. I didn't know. When I found the
Yeah,
actual court records and it was online, I'm like, this isn't even that hard to find. Like, why is this, So,
right.
uh, I would go deep into my research bag. And then also, I would also read some of those 19th century articles and the way that they spoke. And every once in a while, they had a quote from an enslaved person. And so I'm like, oh, this is so great to include. I could actually resurrect their voices from the archive. So it is
Mm.
the researcher in me, the journalist in me. Anybody who knows my work, I take interviews very seriously. So I almost approached, not to be all hokey, but I almost approached resurrecting these people as if I was interviewing them and trying to
Mhm.
tell their story and saying, what way can these characters come through me? Now, some folks I had very little to work with, but the Josephine character, that's a combination of two Josephines, one in Maryland, one in Mississippi. And that was kind of fascinating. The Nathaniel character, that's a combination of two black enslavers. So I think researching for the grift, and sometimes when you're researching, you find other things that you could use. And if I find something interesting, I always save it, I screenshot it, I email it to myself. I have an entire folder of research material. So all of that, I think, allowed me to really flesh out the story. And I did have a couple of rules. Like some people have said, I wish you had a chapter on Solomon or a chapter on Ruby.
Mm.
The main characters are
Mhm.
all named after real people. The secondary characters, I use the names of my ancestors in Goochland.
Mhm.
But I wanted to make sure every chapter was focused on an actual real person. So those folks all existed. The other people, I just borrowed names from my people in Goochland to really give it a certain kind of soul. But yeah, the research helped me to really find the story.
Yeah, I want to talk to you about your family. I found that really interesting that you kind of have inserted these names, right, of actual people in your own family. Um, how much did you know about your ancestors growing up? Did you learn more in this process? Did you kind of look into that history, and how did that feel putting all of that into this book?
I didn't know. I don't know. I mean, I did my ancestry tree with me and my cousins, and so we found our names that went back to Larkin. That's where
Mm.
I got the name Larkin from. I Charity's real husband, his name was Nat, but I already had a Nathaniel, and that would confuse people.
Yeah.
So I love that name Larkin, and it appears he was owned by an Irish man, and it appears that he fought in the Civil War.
Mm.
But I'm saying appears because you never really know. These are, hard to, these documents and all this kind of stuff. So, but all those names, Larkin, Solomon, Emma Jane, one of my favorite characters in the last chapter, that's my grandmother's name who died a year before I was born. So some of this, and Solomon is one of my ancestors. Thomas, which is the name of one of the characters in the fourth chapter, the baby who is escapes with his mother, then is re-enslaved when the black enslaver kind of traps them. That's my grandfather's name. So
Mm.
those are the two like closest to me. But I really just went in the tree and said, I don't want to just think of random names. I may not know their stories, but I know they're a part of me.
Mm.
I don't,
Mhm.
I don't know what happened to Solomon. I don't know what happened to Miss Emily, but they're in my ancestry tree, and my ancestry tree stops around Larkin, right before the Civil War.
Yeah.
around that well, a little before that, kind of just stops there, right? So that's that's what really moved me, and it just allowed me to elevate my roots and part of who I am. And when I would
Mhm.
visit Goochland as a child, I just found it so incredible. It was so green. It was so, country in a beautiful way. And
Mhm.
but my grandfather never wanted to go back there because he had saw too much in the Jim Crow South.
Mhm.
But he would tell me stories of seeing people being lynched.
Mm.
He would tell me stories of the kind of terror that he went through. He passed away in 1999, but it was just a way. It was a way to feel connected as I was writing.
Mhm. So your grandfather left that place in the Great Migration and
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah.
He moved to Philadelphia in the 1950s.
Okay.
He didn't learn how to read until his first wife taught him how to read, who was a school teacher. He eventually became he opened up a restaurant which closed. Then he began working for SEPTA, which is the transportation system
Yeah.
in Philadelphia. And yeah, we were very close. I miss him a lot. He would be so stunned, and he would actually when I would he would actually sit me on the stoop in Philadelphia and have me read in front of everybody. Have me
Really?
read the newspaper. He would say, "That boy can read. Look at that boy read." And he really loved that I was a big reader. And even I would write all the time as a kid. I've been keeping a journal since 1987.
Wow.
So he really was probably the first person to instill the power of reading and stories in me.
It's really incredible, in a way, like calling your ancestors into this work,
Hmm.
as a way to honor them. It's a really
Absolutely.
beautiful thing.
And I feel them with me. I tell you, I feel them with me because, publishing can be hard, but to have them, I feel like that they're happy, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you, this is a little inside baseball for everybody watching, but have you, when you were doing your research, you said you had an ancestor who maybe fought in the Civil War. Have you gotten into any of the pension records have you seen those?
I've seen pension records, but it's not clear if
Yeah.
my ancestors got anything close to that. But I've seen those, and it was unclear. I
Yeah.
mean, I would love to like have Henry Louis Gates do a deeper dive into all that, but yeah, maybe he can go back further than Larkin. But yeah, I've seen that, but I couldn't find a connection.
It can be incredibly hard work, but for any of you who are watching and interested in genealogy, I would just make a plug. If you do find that you have an ancestor who has a connection to the Civil War, the thing about these pension files is that they contain affidavits. And
Mm,
so what happened was that um, they would interview people who knew the person at the time that they were enslaved, and they can give full life stories. And
right,
those are all
right,
housed at Library of Congress. Another reason why we need to preserve federal records because
absolutely,
they're unbelievable, useful.
absolutely.
One of the other things I want to talk to you about, so I'm going to quote a friend of mine and a colleague in the museum space, Margaret Middleton. She talks about queer possibility. This is a concept that she talks about in museum spaces. So as someone with a background in history, I'm sure you know this too well, uh, that queer people are written out of the narrative, right? That there's this idea that we kind of impose heterosexuality on people in the past, even if we don't know, right? And so this concept that she has come up with is queer possibility, the idea that you can that you can ask questions about whether someone might have been LGBTQ, not assuming heterosexuality. And you've got this incredible love story between these two characters in the first. So I'm curious about, your reading. You talk about these two sentences from these narratives and your reading of some of those sources and how you kind of, can come up with these stories.
Yeah, that was the beginning of it that's where I began writing it in college, and I was so stunned. And I read it from a book called Taboo. I have it somewhere over here about homosexuality in Black communities, and they covered American chattel slavery. And it appeared they were being sexually assaulted by their enslavers, one
Mm.
even being chained to his bed. And in the book, Luke is chained to his bed, and that was the name of the man who was chained. and that's the only reference to him. So, as I say in the book, I wanted to give them love where history gave them pain. And it's outlandish to think that there were what we call now gay folks during American chattel slavery. I would only think people were looking for love and desiring love because there was a freedom in love, no matter who they were. And I was also thinking of breeding plantations and what would happen, whether you're straight or gay, it's going to be hard to do that. But what if you are not even able to perform in any capacity, no matter what the pressure is? What would that look like for someone like Henry? So I wanted to bring these two characters together, and I wanted to, again, show the possibility. And that scene at the riverbank was one of the first scenes I wrote. I almost like had a vision of it, of them running and running and running, and they fall at the riverbank. And there's this intimacy. And too many times we only see LGBT people below the groin, but never above the groin. And it isn't about the sex, it's about the love between the two of them. And some people have gotten upset because it doesn't come till like page 30 or 40 or so. And some people have reached out to me, why you put this gay shit in there?
Mm.
Because they're liking the book, but they don't see that coming. And I'm like, well, now you already in it. Good luck. You know what I mean? But I wanted to show what revolutionary love looks like. I wanted to show what radical hope looks like. I don't think it's that far-fetched at all. Uh, is there an actual document or proof or anything like that? No, but what is proof when it comes to love? And I also wanted to show, as we're in this era of so many divisions, that look at all the people that are represented in this book. Somebody who was not born in this country, Henry,
Mhm.
or Henri, as some folks have been calling him. Uh, Somebody who, folks who are queer, elders like old Mama Bess, children like Harriet and Sophia who were born free, Josephine, even a black enslaver. So I wanted to show, without saying it, just what intersection looks like and how you
Mm.
can have freedom in that. I want all of us to be free. I want all of us to be liberated. I don't believe in throwing people out because they're gay or because they're this or because they're that. I want us all to be free. And lastly, I'll say, if I would have read um, characters like Luke and Henry when I was a young man in Philly, when I was a teenager, it would have made me hate myself a whole lot less.
Mm.
I would have said, "Oh my God, oh my God, what?" It would have just made me love myself a little bit more. So to my gay brothers out there, or anybody who feels erased, or there's this myth that it's just so easy to be gay right now. There are gay folks being bullied every single day, queer folks being bullied constantly. And so my hope is, it was kind of an ode to my younger self as well. And when I've had folks reach out to me, send me these long messages like, "Oh my God, you don't know what that did for me. I broke down crying in the airport lounge,"
Mm.
or I just I saw myself finding love as well. Man, because a lot of gay folks are taught that you don't deserve love, you don't deserve compassion, you don't deserve peace, you know, love the sinner, hate the sin, all of that. So when I'm talking about burn down master's house, I'm asking us to burn it down up here.
Mhm.
Burn down the lies, burn down the misinformation, burn it down in your mind first. You can't have any kind of progress or revolution or forward movement if you're still living enslaved in your mind. So there's so many things that are being burnt down. And I'm asking the reader, what's the house in your life you got to burn down? What are
Mm.
the chains you have to break from? What do you have to escape from? We all have our own individual fires we have to start. And so my hope is the book sparks people. And Luke and Henry, they are the beginning of that spark.
Mm. That's so beautifully said. And it's, you craft the what I think you did so well in their story is there's this quietness, this kind of peace with the two of them. And you do so well throughout the book in kind of capturing these separate lives that are kind of internal lives, separate and apart from, the specter of slavery and white supremacy and all of this oppression. And you can see so clearly how free they are together, you know.
Hmm. Hmm.
And it's such a beautiful depiction of that, especially in contrast to what they're experiencing, and even specifically the way that sexuality is imposed on them from the outside. You see these two selves, right? The internal self that is true and free, and the external self that's enduring this other thing. So it's a beautiful way to capture that. I think, one of the things that I really enjoyed about the book is the way that you did two things simultaneously. It's a communication of real events, as we discussed, real stories that really happened, while also in each chapter, each different story that plays out, you've layered in these kind of different things to wrestle with, thinking about what does white supremacy do to Black people? What does it do to white people? How does it impact those groups differently? The effects of the patriarchy, of
Hmm.
sexism, right? Of
Hmm.
homophobia. You've found ways to insert those, and your characters are complicated, right? So you can. I especially loved the woman who's taken Charity to
Miss Clara.
Miss Clara, right?
She was fun to write. She was
She's
fun.
interesting, right? Because you can see she's this stand. I mean, this is a thing. This is a thing that we know, right? That people believe one thing but do a different thing,
Exactly. Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
And become complicit in a system they don't believe in, right?
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, Miss Clara is a narcissist. Miss Clara only cares because it impacts her,
Right.
but you can kind of see her wrestling uh, with what it means to be a slaveholder's wife, but she only cares because it wasn't the fantasy she believed it would be,
Hmm.
right? And then she allows, if you will, she had no choice according to Charity and Larkin to be free. But even when she meets with Norman Bruce, she says Larkin's name because it is still about her narcissism. She wants to say the name out loud. She
Listen,
wants it to come off her lips, like Larkin Butler, fine man. Yeah, that was fascinating to write. And I was thinking, and then even with Thaddeus, when one of my favorite scenes is when he is talking to Norman Bruce, and Thaddeus says, and Norman Bruce says, I will go broke. She's my property. And Thaddeus says, you're willing to impoverish yourself
hmm
to get this.
hmm
But his own cluelessness, he's willing to sell his soul to become a famous lawyer in Pennsylvania. That was his first case to go to the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. So you think Norman Bruce is the enemy, but you are also the enemy. And
hmm
it's funny, I had a whole different ending. When Thaddeus Stevens dies, you could find that there's actual newspaper of this. He's on his deathbed, but I felt like I was centering him too much, so I took it out. But as he's dying, these three nuns come in, and they're called the Sisters of Charity.
mm
And I just said, that is so. I wonder if he thought of Charity in his final moments. Because, he's partnered with the black woman, Linda Hamilton Smith. And did he tell no Lydia, I'm sorry. Did he tell Lydia this? Like was so wild to me. So you're right. These complicated characters, Northerners, Southerners,
hmm
uh, still upholding the system. Now Charity does get her freedom because of the letter that Miss Clara writes after Larkin writes to her. But still, she is still part of the problem.
Listen,
She is
oh, I mean, he wouldn't have known. I don't know. I was
He
mad at
wouldn't have
her.
known. Now,
I was
and
mad.
mind you, I could have wrote it that Norman Bruce would have found out and stomped through
Right.
Gettysburg, but I'm like, no, no, no.
Yeah.
I'm gonna, and then she. I don't think I've mentioned this before. I don't know if anybody caught this, but at one point, Miss Clara implies that I feel like you and my husband Charles prefer the company of each other.
Mm,
Like there's just so many things that I want
hmm.
people to see what's happening with this character, how she's internalizing and all these things. And yet she is able to escape. She's able to go back home with her
Right.
father, with baby Gertrude, and escape back up north to Vermont. So yeah, it's a very interesting character. Yeah.
Yeah, it's and like this from studying this period and studying this history that like there's not, I mean, short of John Brown, right? There
Yeah.
are not very many white people at this time who have this what Frederick Douglass called a black heart in the
Yes.
sense of you have to feel the experiences of a black person, right? That
Yeah.
he was willing to die for it. But
He was.
in reality, it's a lot of, what did Martin Luther King say about white moderates? This is like a lot of what you see during that period. People not willing to put themselves on the line, not willing
Yes.
to, only so far as it affects them personally, as you show
Oh my
there.
gosh, I had a whole thing, but I took it out because I couldn't tie it into the story. There were abolitionists who were against slavery, but they were not against equal rights.
Right,
So they're
right.
like, okay, we want slavery to end, but you want to vote? You want to you want to serve on a jury? Oh, you want to nullify Dred Scott? Okay, well, now you asked for too much now. But I couldn't, it just wasn't making sense. But all of that, we certainly see that. That is Wilhelmina, Thaddeus's
Hmm.
secretary. That is even, I mean, he's not a moderate at all, he's still a slaveholder, but even Minister Woodward, who is
Hmm.
okay with Negroes, owning some people, give them some crumbs, right? Yeah, all of that. So it's fascinating. That is a serious history. But John Brown, that's my dude. He's incredible. I love John Brown.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. No, but yeah, I mean, the abolitionists at that time, and you think about things like the American Colonization Society, founded by
Yep.
abolitionists. This is the vision: is like slavery is an evil, and we must end slavery, but that the real answer is move Black people out of this
Uh,
country,
Lincoln wanted that.
right?
Yeah,
Right.
that was.
This,
I have a couple of digs to Lincoln in the book. Like Lincoln wanted
yes,
that. I
yeah,
mean, yeah, the last 2 weeks of his life, he's still talking about it, and that's why at the end of the book, I said, no more waiting for accomplices, no
yeah,
more waiting for allies. We will
yeah,
answer with fire. Yeah.
right, right. Yes, I was wondering if we have a James Baldwin reference in that when I
Oh, the
read that
fire
line.
next time?
Yeah.
No, not really, but I love Baldwin.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
was more my Richard Wright bag when I was writing
Okay,
this, but
yeah,
I
yeah,
love
yeah.
Baldwin. I love Baldwin. Yeah, yeah.
Well, I would love to know. I mean, we've had a lively discussion in the meeting chat, and thank you all for lending your experience with the book and things that you thought of. And I just want to do another shout out if there's anybody who has specific questions that they want to throw our way, please feel free because we have a few more minutes in this. Um, I would
Can they
love.
raise their hand to ask a question? Is that how it works?
I think you need to put it in the chat. I will
Oh, gotcha,
defer
gotcha,
to,
gotcha.
yeah. So put your questions in the chat and we'll go ahead and we can take any of those. Um, I want to know, as we're kind of getting towards the end, what's next? What's next for you? What are you working on now?
So I'm working on my next book. The follow-up to The Grift is called Dishonor, Black MAGA and the Rise of the New Southern Strategy. But it's focusing more on the voters, Black voters who once supported Trump or still support him. So I'm working on that. That'll come out in the 2028 election year. And I'm also working on the sequel to Burn Down Master's House, but it's still in his
Mm,
like infancy stages. There were some characters like Josephine that I left open, so there is a lot more to come with that. So I'm really, really excited. But that won't be till like 2030, 2029.
wow.
So I need time to do that. And just continuing, talking about this book and spreading the word. And yeah, so that's where I'm at right now.
It's really exciting. Um, so somebody has, we have a few questions that have popped up in here. One
Okay.
person says, how do I get started writing when I have so much information about my family from early 1700 to present?
So I'm a writer who purges. I put everything on paper. It's easier to pull back than it is to try to get more. Put it all out there. Try and write at least one question, one question a day. Um, I'm sorry, one paragraph a day. I
Mm,
try and write every single day. So I put it all out there. Put it all out there. Make it raw and impactful. And at that point, no one's going to read it. It's just your raw words. So that's what I always say. Just make sure you keep writing, keep writing, keep writing. If I could really address this question really quick,
sure.
Anne from Indiana, tell us about Alexa. If you don't know, the book is dedicated to my dear friend Alexa, who I'm looking at right now. She died of lupus in May of 2025. The last 6 months of her life, or 5 months or so, she was editing this book more or less on her deathbed. And Alexa was my friend for 23 years. And she gave me so many powerful, incredible edits and feedback as she was in between surgeries. And we had amazing conversations. So I miss her every day. I think about her constantly. She's been a force in this book. So a little bit of her is in this book as well. Because she was a brutal, she gave some brutal advice now. So I hate this paragraph, change it. So but she helped to make this book, helped me to make it so proud of it.
That's wonderful. We had a question just a minute ago. I want to pop back up to what inspired the method of Nathaniel's death? They say, this is Sarah, says it's rare to see symbols of Christianity and traditional African religion depicted side by side.
Great question. Great question. So Nathaniel was the black enslaver. And one of the most, one of the things I love in this conversation, Ashley, is that you haven't used the word violence one time. And I understand why people think of the book as being violent and gory. I understand that. So I'm not like, delusional when it comes to that. But it's less about violence and more about a ritual.
Mm,
It wasn't just a shot in the head or a stabbing. They had to end the bloodline. They had to do an exorcism, if you will. So it was a ritual each time they metaphorically or literally had to burn down Master's house. So when it comes to Nathaniel, for me, it is almost operatic. He knows them. He was once enslaved. It's not as simple as we're going to dismember you or we're going to poison you. He built this house. He is the house in many ways. And so they have to nail him to the oak door. He is he's not totally crucified, but he's spread out like an X, but you're kind of getting a crucifixion there. Then when the minister shows up, they bury the minister alive. So in between Nathaniel and his death scene, this Christian minister is buried alive. So I wanted to show what it meant to burn down every element of white supremacy, even black people who are upholding white supremacy.
mm.
That was very crucial because they can be harmful as well. And he says things like that Kanye West said, slavery is a choice.
Yes,
That South
yeah.
Carolina Senator Tim Scott has said, cotton to Congress. In the book, he says cotton to master. So
Mhm.
that was a specific end to a wrong. And when Luke is about to shoot him, Emma Jane says, no, that's too easy. And she has the mason jar with the dirt in there and the nails and the razor blade. So they're calling on their ancestors. So it is a different kind of ritual when someone has done so much harm. Uh, how do you end this completely? And I knew that I wanted to open it and close it with the house burning down. But that specifically, I felt like it needed to end that way. Um, and there's so much in that Nathaniel chapter of upward mobility, of class, of race, of
Mhm.
religion. All of it kind of collides into one. And of course, this is a spoiler. At the end, a lot of characters come back.
Yeah, that was it was really cathartic to have
Yeah.
everybody coming back in that place. I think that we didn't really get into that chapter, but it's tricky, right, to talk about Black enslavers. And
Yeah,
it's something that here we have to be pretty cautious with because, as you know, it's something that people kind of put up as a way to shield and not talk about the reality of
absolutely.
racialized slavery, right? They'll put out the exception. And
Right.
and as you point out, many people who were Black who owned enslaved people were buying family members, but
Own
not
their
all.
family. Not,
Not
yeah,
all.
exactly. Yeah. And that was I wasn't really nervous writing any chapter, but when I was thinking this, I was like, I don't want some right-wing person to say, "Oh, look, Black people own slaves too." It
Exactly.
was rare. It
Yeah.
was an anomaly. They usually own their family, but there were some
Yeah.
who had that upward mobility, and according to the historical record, they were almost competing with the violence because they wanted to prove themselves. And I'm not saying that this is exactly the same, but the history rhymes to some of the folks who are out here today who
Mhm.
are saying horrible things about their own community, and they get a pass because they're Black.
Right.
They get a pass because they are well, you will if they say it, it can't really be racist. That's why that conversation that Nathaniel and Minister Woodward have at the table is so important because, like I said earlier, he says to him, I always believed in giving a couple Negroes a few crumbs. But then he also says, let me remind you, you're still a Negro and you will rot in a Negro's grave.
Mm.
And so Nathaniel forgot his place, if you will. There's always an end to the grift. Very few people hit the grifting lottery, but there is an end to it. If you are literally a token, your tokens will get spent. And Nathaniel learned that. And the historical record did say for one of the enslavers that his enslaved people tried to murder him several
I
times.
saw that. I saw
Exactly.
that.
So
Yeah,
when I
yeah.
saw that, I
Right.
said, bingo. I said, oh, now we don't know what happened to him. And I said, well, if I know they probably took him out at some point. They probably took him out,
I
you know.
that was such as you know, like reading this, it's like I have been studying the history of American slavery for 20 some odd years. It continues to surprise me. And
Every
you
time.
know, you there's things that you think like there's no way that was true.
Right.
And then it turns out, I mean, this happens to me all the time. So when I got to that, I was like, oh my God, I could not believe that this was a real thing that someone did. And
Isn't it crazy? Like, I
it's
have a
crazy.
degree in Black Studies, and I found that I was like, how did I not know this? Why didn't anybody teach me this in school? I think it was an article I found in Popular Science magazine, I think from 1912. Like,
Yeah.
that is amazing. And I'm like, why did the historian stop there? Was there more details? You
Right.
know,
You just,
so
and that's like all you have is just
right.
this one thing. And this is the most infuriating thing. But yes, I've so often had that experience. I thought
Yeah.
when I had that over and over again, I want to say there's, as you were talking about your family, I will say there's someone in the Q&A, Charlotte Bocage, shout out, a descendant from Whitney Plantation who has offered to help you with some genealogy. And I can vouch she's a great researcher. So I
Oh,
do
I
know,
love that.
I
I
know
love that. I
Charlotte.
love
So
that.
shout out Charlotte. Well, let's see if there's I'm going to scroll through here and see if there's anything we have missed from some of these questions in the Q&A. If you see, if there's anything that you want to see that you want to hop up on,
Uh,
please feel free.
let me see here. Did you visit the church or the chapel? What was your experience? Oh, I visited the church of the Whitney Plantation. Absolutely. Yeah, it was powerful. It was incredible. What I loved is after I went to the visit the Whitney Plantation, I said, "So where were the fields?" And they showed us where the fields were, but it's kind of behind a fence, and it looked like an ocean. Um,
Yeah,
as it was amazing. What was your
it's
reaction to the?
yeah,
Oh God.
the fields out, we still so the fields are still the same fields that
Yeah.
have been here for this whole time, and they're still actively farmed here at Whitney, not by us, but like the it's something that I've thought about a lot in terms of the visitor experience. Most people don't have the experience of going into these fields. And I've gone past that fence and stood there. There's something about like the human experience of like you can feel yourself, you know how big you are in relation to the plants, in relation to the scope that I wish we could deliver to visitors. I've thought about that
Yeah.
a lot.
Yeah. Let me see here. There was something I saw here. Uh, where was it? Oh, I love this in the book. I especially like that Norman Bruce was so obsessed with destroying charity that he let himself become as run down as his estate. Yeah, absolutely. I mentioned it before, but charity In the book, I have it 15 years that she was free. But in real life, she was free for over a decade, for 10 years. And I was just thinking, like, how much money do you have to fight 10 years to enslave somebody who's free due to the Pennsylvania Gradual Abolition Act?
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to show, and listen, we kind of see this in our voting patterns, that people will hurt their own economy if they believe the other person is taking something away from them. I mean, you had poor
Mm-hmm.
white people fighting in the Civil War when, I mean, this is, how is this helping your income? You know what I'm saying? Like,
Oh,
how
yeah.
is this helping you? It was a crazy narrative to me, and so I really wanted to show that, and I thought that he was a perfect example of it. Yeah,
Yeah, that's a story too. It seems so illogical, but that is not the only instance I've seen of that exact thing happening.
absolutely. Yeah, there's
Yeah,
a person named Dawn. I think she wants to ask a question. She has her hand up. Can we bring her on?
I don't know.
Dawn Mars.
Dawn.
I think I could do it. Let me see if I could do it.
Okay.
Let me try. Oh, maybe I can't. Oh, there you go, Dawn. Get off mute, Dawn. Get off.
Dawn's at Whitney.
Oh,
Dawn's at
Dawn's at
Whitney
Whitney.
right now.
I'll
She's in our
never.
gift shop.
Oh, you're in the gift shop, Dawn, but you got to get off mute, Dawn. Dawn, she's talking. She's talking. Oh, Dawn, I'm sorry. You got to get off mute,
There
Dawn.
goes Ty. Oh,
Okay, I'm sorry. You got to get off
it's
mute.
our illustrious Ty. Ty
Oh
wants
wait,
her at
allow
Whitney.
allow Mike. There
Oh,
you
let me
go.
see.
We working? Oh,
I don't
damn.
know.
I'm
I don't know.
sorry.
Well,
Eh,
nice to
eh,
see you. Thank you for
yeah, nice to
visiting.
see you. Yeah, it's all good. It's all good.
All right. Well, we will.
If, wait a
Oh,
minute, can you hear me now?
Oh, I can hear you now.
yeah.
Yep, yep,
What's
yep.
up,
What's up?
Dawn?
Thank you. Well, a couple of things. Like I think earlier when actually when you had mentioned something about what was it like from the perspective of white supremacy and what did it
Hmm.
mean, I think my question would have been to take that same point of view from the black person's perspective and say what would those choices look like from a place of freedom.
Yeah.
Mm.
So when we asked about a James Baldwin quote, and respectfully, I know that you said Richard Wright was on your mind,
Yeah.
but there was a James Baldwin quote that I wanted to share that was relevant for me as well as Frederick Douglass.
Mm-hmm.
James Baldwin said, "Freedom is not something that anybody can be given. Freedom is something people take, and people
Mm-hmm.
are as free as they want to be."
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Absolutely.
And in the confinements of the institution of chattel slavery, we know physically that may not be, but to your point,
Mm-hmm.
you know, that's where I'm going, to your point, and you have said that and done that more than once in this presentation. And
Mm.
that's where slavery and freedom begin. And,
Absolutely.
and Frederick Douglass had a quote. He said his prayers for freedom were answered when he got off his knees and prayed with his feet.
Mm.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I
It was
love
like
that.
my prayers were answered when I prayed with my feet. And there are
Yeah.
two other quick things. Just first of all, I loved the format of this book
Thank
and the
you.
style of presentation. You are most welcome, and thank you because it was a pleasure to read and to listen on audiobook. I
Thank
mean,
you.
so good. I bought both. And somewhere in there, I just kept seeing a significance in the number 4 and the
Mm-hmm.
continuity of 4. There are 4 columns in a master's house. In
Mm-hmm.
the image,
Yep.
there are 4 sections, there are 4 chapters. At the end, you have 4 main characters from each layer. And 4 is very foundational. The
Mm-hmm.
elements, the directions, the zodiac signs. I mean, it is cardinal and something very stabilizing in it through all that came. And what I found is that your book was so varied and at the same time so cohesive
Mm-hmm.
and came back full circle.
Thank you.
And you're welcome. Thank you. And it started with you could say, gruesome or traumatic death of a Black female
Mm-hmm.
at the hands of
Yeah.
colonizers.
Henry's
And when
mother.
yes, And when it ended, it was like the exact opposite of the same thing, with the traumatic, ritualistic death of
Mhm.
people who had been formerly enslaved, of a white male, which is antithetical to the mom at the very
Mhm.
start. And it
Yeah.
was a progression for me as
Mm.
I was reading it of how things had developed in certain paths and what could and could not be done. And just quickly, two other things. I was truly surprised that Charity was a real person named Charity,
Yeah.
because it is written, the greatest of these, these things from Corinthians are faith, hope, and love. And in some
Mhm.
translations, it says charity,
Mhm.
but the greatest
Wow.
of these is love.
Love
And that's
that.
charity. And that was
Wait,
a love.
are you do you work at the Whitney Plantation?
No, I'm a physician who is from Baton Rouge. I was doing some work in New Orleans, and I read this book, and so I was in transition. I'm in transit home, so I got off the interstate and came. I didn't know if it was in person. I didn't have time to sign up.
Dawn.
The staff helped me
I
in.
love that.
Oh, Dawn, thank you for giving everyone
Th-
a preview of the
Thank you.
Oh, I'm
Thank you,
sorry
the
Dawn.
about
Whitney.
to get
Yeah, that's you
back
really
to book.
did. I love it. I
Okay,
love
one,
it.
and I'm gonna go the
Okay.
music, because I saw a Dr. Mark Guillory, speaking of Phyllis Hyman, and
Yes.
Donna, someone named with a G. And so I got to tell you, as I was reading this book, at different points along the way, I just had a soundtrack in my.
Uh,
One of my songs was "Burning Down the House" by
yeah.
Radiohead, Talking
Yeah, yeah,
Head.
yeah. Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Another was "Fire" by the Ohio Players.
Yeah, I like Fire by Etta James as well. Yep, yep, yep.
Oh, yes, that's right. And then
Yeah.
another was "Through the Fire" by Shaka Khan.
Yes, yes, yes.
And there were so many songs. Like, I don't have it with me because I wasn't prepared to be here in this capacity, but I
Yeah.
actually have a soundtrack for your book. And I
Okay.
thought it was lovely,
Uh,
the dedication to your friend, and she is definitely with you. And
yes.
through you, she touches her readers. Your
Yes.
So thank you.
Well, thank you, Dawn. What a nice, nice comment to make. Thank you for the love. I love that you're at the, I love that you're there right now. I love that. I love that. Is so great. That's so great.
Yo, that is, thank you. Thank you for coming on. Well, we are going to wrap it up. Thank you so much. This has been such a pleasure. And I just want to thank everyone for coming and for sharing your perspectives. It seems like you got a lot of love on this book. So you got
Yeah.
a lot of people here. Thank you so much for coming to see us.
Well, listen, thank you for doing this event. I wish it could have been in person, but
Yeah.
it's incredible to be here. Uh, it's a dream come true. I remember being at the Whitney Plantation gift shop and thinking, I want my book in here one day. So it's really, really cool. So y'all make sure you support the Whitney Plantation. It's not trauma porn. It's centered around the souls. It's powerful. And at one point, y'all were under attack. They were trying to tear y'all down. So y'all are still standing. We need this history. History should make you feel uncomfortable and also inspired. And that's what the Whitney Plantation did for me. So I'm really
Thank
grateful.
you.
Thank you, Ashley. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, you always got to home your next book. You're going to come in person. Okay.
Absolutely. We're going to make it happen. We're going to make it
All
happen.
right.
All right,
All
y'all.
right.
Thank
Thank
y'all.
you.